All right, mobile GR team, are we good? All right. Hey. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to call the meeting to order. To the members of the public present, welcome Mobile GR Commission to the Mobile GR Commission meeting. This commission provides input on mobility-related activities and programs to department staff and also makes recommendations to City Commission on policies related to these activities. As members of the public, we have one opportunity where you can provide comments. You can provide those comments at the end, or I'm sorry, toward the end on number 9 of the agenda. We are not able to respond to your comments directly, but we are listening and using your feedback to inform our decisions. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Can we get a roll call, please?
Patton.
Here.
Sessa.
Here.
Rohrer.
Here.
Wesselink.
Here.
Rye.
Here.
Miguel Cipriano.
Present.
Weiler.
Here.
Armbruster. Legrand. Pawalka.
Here.
Wilson. Perez Plusher.
Here.
We have quorum.
Great, thank you. And then can I get a motion to approve the minutes? Or, I'm sorry, the agenda. Take that back.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Great. We have a motion on the table. Any questions or comments?
I have a recommended addition to your agenda. I would like to, if you all are open to it, I would like to add a brief discussion around EV charging fees. So a little structure change there, and I want to chat with y'all about that. And then the other thing is I would like to make sure we just take a moment to welcome our new commissioner.
Yes. And may we just agree on that moving forward, or do we need a motion? For the additional, the addition to the agenda. Okay.
Second.
Great, thank you. All right, any questions? Great, vote with the usual sign. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great, any opposed? Great. All right, we're moving with those additions as well. And then can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Support.
Great, thank you. We have a motion. Any questions? All right, all opposed say yay. Aye. I'm sorry. All in favor. Thank you all. It's been a week already. All in favor say yay. Thank you.
Yay.
Any opposed? Great, it passes. Before we go into petitions and communications, I might throw in an introduction for our new commissioner.
Hello, yeah, Lindsay Perez Plusher. I'm really excited to be here and excited to learn more about how this goes. I got my inaugural community member pulled me aside and gave me a laundry list of things they'd like me to bring up at some point, and I was like, I haven't been to a meeting yet, but so yeah, I'm excited to both hear from the community and participate here with you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Lindsay. Can I ask what connects you to Mobile GR? Anything in particular, or just where you live, where you work?
Yeah, I live here in Grand Rapids, lifelong resident, and I'm a mental health therapist by background, so social work background. I've kind of spent my life working to help people and make the world a better place, and I've been involved historically in immigrant rights work, more at the federal level, but have decided to focus more locally now. There's a lot of great things happening locally, and that's been a positive experience for me to just focus in locally at the moment.
Great. Awesome. Well, welcome, and thank you, Commissioner. All right. I'm seeing no petitions nor communications. So we'll move forward with action items. If you remember, or as a reminder, we did have a couple of different action items. As I understand it, I think it says up to one, but I'm hearing for both we have up to 2 representatives. Is that accurate?
Yep, sorry, I didn't update the front part of this, but
No,
in
we're
my director's update, I had said we can take up to 2 for both. I just wanted to make sure
Okay.
you all had plenty of, if someone had to jump out at the last meeting, that you still have representation. I kind of thought of that later. Does that make
Yes.
sense? Okay.
So as a reminder for last meeting, we did have 4 people interested specifically in the mobility blueprint team, but only 2 availabilities. So I do want to open it up. If I remember correctly, we had Commissioner Miguel Cipriano, Commissioner Sessa, Commissioner Rohr, and Commissioner Poelka, who were all interested in that. Are you still interested in either of these? We have 2 options now. We have a micro-mobility option too.
I can give up my seat on the Blueprint team if I can jump on the micromobility RFP panel since I have experience with that.
Yep, that would be great.
I was going to say the same thing.
Great. So at this point, I think it's pretty easy. I can put a vote forward that for the micromobility RFP panel, I'll make the recommendation for Commissioner Miguel Cipriano and Commissioner Poelka, if that works. Can I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Great. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Any opposed? Great. And then the second item is going to be to have Commissioners Rohr and Sessa as the representatives for the Mobility Blueprint team. Can I have a motion for that, please?
So moved.
Support.
Great. All right. And I should have said, any questions on that? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Great. All right. We'll move into discussion. Thank you for your willingness as well to be a part of that, all of you. All right, we'll move into discussion.
Quick point of order. Would you like me to chat about your EV charging fees now or after? I would recommend we can just do that quickly, and then
Let's
you
do
guys
it
have
now.
plenty of time for your, okay.
That
for
sounds
your-
great.
Yep, because I think that our amphitheater conversation is going to be the meat of what's going on. All right, so I wanted to get you all's feedback on something that you may see in the preliminary budget discussions that are coming up next week, and then they'll kind of just keep going on until final decisions are made. So one of the fees that you'll see, so every year we have an omnibus schedule, and there's all the fees that the city charges for different things, right? And we have to have things in that fee schedule to be able to charge the fee. And you see parking rates and things in there. That's where you would see parking rates. But what's added in there for Mobile GR that you might not realize we are in charge of is EV charging stations owned by the city. So there's 2 sets of EV charging stations owned by the city. There's the ones that for our fleet that are not open to the public, and then there are a few that are open to the public, and those are the ones that Mobile GR is tasked with taking care of. So some of those you'll see are actually plugged up with our dark cars, and they're not open to the public. They're specifically for dark cars to make sure that they always have a space and they're always able to be charged there. And then we have a few still that are open to the public for public charging. What's happened over the years, when we first started putting in these public charging stations, is that we were charging a premium parking rate, right? So we charge, I think it's $2.25 an hour. So I'm looking at you. I think it is.
Sounds right.
Yeah, and it won't matter here in just a minute how much it is. So it is a premium charging. So it's more than what we charge for off-street, which is $2 per half hour. Wait, that's wrong. It's per hour. It's 2.25. We're just going to go with that number. And if I'm wrong, I will correct myself later. And then what, I'm sorry, this was Devin 2 seconds ago. So what has happened is in 2023, the state put out a new requirement with the Michigan Weights and Measures, and it required electrical vehicle charging to be charged based on energy rather on time. So we've been charging this premium parking rate, and according to these requirements, we should be doing it per energy. So we looked around and looked at the market, and remembering that not only are we in a market of EV chargers, but also the type of EV chargers. So these are level 2 EV chargers that we currently have. And so my recommendation has been that we introduce into the omnibus fee schedule a range of about 20 cents to 40 cents per kilowatt hour for our EV charging. And then you can also have things like an overstay fee, and you can do that per minute or per some sort of grace period, right? So when a car is done charging and we charge them for the kilowatt hour, then if they're overstaying, you don't want the car to stay there. You want to encourage it to leave and let someone else charge it. So often in the industry, what they'll do is charge an overstay fee of set dollar amount or a set percentage after the overstay time, which might be like 15 minutes. That's very common. So that's my recommendation. And the reason why I'm looking at 20 cents to 40 cents per kilowatt hour is because we want to make sure that we have flexibility to shift as the market changes, but also not to charge so much that it discourages EV use because the charging price is not priced correctly. So this is a little bit of regulation alignment, but also it's a pricing component. So I would love to know you all's feedback. Go ahead.
As the person who's got most EV charging around this table, I'm sure I've got 400,000 miles roughly on EVs at this point in my life. I would recommend that we actually put the ceiling on that at 80 cents a kilowatt hour for a couple of reasons. One, the standard market rate at DC charging stations right now is about 60 cents a kilowatt hour. Second of all, as an EV user, I'm incredibly price insensitive. So I charge when I need charge, and I don't really care. I do most of my charging at home. When I'm charging outside my home, I'm charging so that I don't run out of charge. I'm happy to pay a premium for that convenience. Always have been, always will be. So I don't think you're going to get pushback from actual EV users if you charge a higher fee. I also think that it will encourage people to not do opportunistic charges. In other words, if we charge less than the market rate, we're going to get weird effects potentially where people like, haha, I can park over here and save myself money. And so I think it's a really bad idea. I think for the third reason it's a bad idea to go low is because you get backlash from the non-EV users that we're subsidizing this. We never want to create that appearance. The fourth reason to set it higher is because I have had conversations as mayor with ChargePoint. They think that we could have a viable DC fast charger in a location in Grand Rapids as long as we were charging market rates for the use of that DC fast charger. I would love to see Mobile GR get into actually putting in DC charging stations where the math simply lines up. We don't have to make money off this, but as long as we're not losing money. I did the back of the napkin math on this, and I think The city, frankly, at near term, like the next 5 to 10 year capacity, should have about 10 DC charging locations inside the city limits with about 12 heads per. Right now we have 0, so I'd like to get to 1. And I think that setting charging rates that will allow us flexibility for that is simply going to allow us to have more option to present. It's going to look better. All the math's going to work better, and I don't see any pushback, frankly, from the EV community. I mean, they can use it or not, and given the level of interest and the level of enthusiasm of the people currently driving EVs, I would be shocked if you got pushback on a higher threshold. And since you're saying 20 to X, if you just simply put that up to 80, you can administratively decide to make it 45 cents a kilowatt hour. But I'd like to give you the space to go up.
Okay, it's great points. I want to reframe a couple of things, and can I see your hand? So just 1 second. So a couple of things. One, we were talking a lot about DC chargers just now. Right now, all I've got are level 2 chargers, and that's a good point though. So if we would ever move to installing DC chargers, it would be important to have the flexibility to charge more, because it is in the market, it is more expensive. Typically, we pay a little bit more for a DC charger. Right now, I only have level 2. So for this fee structure in this omnibus, I have made it specific to level 2 charging. That doesn't mean it has to be that way. That's just how I presented it in this particular budget cycle. So, and back to like cost recovery. So at 25 cents, these are my rough estimates. At 25 cents, we can do operating cost recovery. Right now, we're not, and the interesting thing is right now, the way that we're doing it with premium parking costs is we are only getting about 35% compliance. And so, which means, we're handing out a lot of tickets, but folks are just not paying that extra price. So what happens is they come into the ramp, they pay their $2 a half hour for a ramp coming into park. And then when they park at the EV charging station, they don't go ahead and open up their Mo2 app and pay that extra. I've got about 35% of people that will do that. And so I'm not reaching cost recovery right now. But at 25 cents a kilowatt hour, we can get cost recovery, no problem. At 42 cents a kilowatt hour, I can get operating costs plus 50% of infrastructure costs. So it at the 25 cents, you're talking about using some other funding source or just seeing that as like an amenity of your parking facility, right, is a charging station. I mean, we just pay for that up front like anything else, and we don't kind of bill it back in a cost recovery. So that's also something that is just to consider. So this is thinking about level 2, but I don't disagree that it might be important to think about higher limits on this, especially as we continue to have this conversation at the commission level, what they're comfortable with, so that you have that option to have a DC charger and it come out. But I did think that maybe we should divide those two fee structures, but I'm open to questions. And I know you have a hand up, but let's start with Ken.
Okay, thank you. I think I'd have to defer to the mayor's experience with that and its support initially with this 80 cents a minute ceiling. Because I wonder if there could be reinvestment with those funds brought into to think about level 3 chargers as a power user of the EV car shares units. That's usually a big thing. Like if I try to get to Lansing, don't even think about Detroit. I have to think, am I going to get in a vehicle that it doesn't have enough charge? And so I've had to use a few of the other chargers that the city provides. And so that is something, that's a reason why I would want to support that, let alone all the other things that you mentioned. And again, Jessica, thank you so much for this work that you've done on this. And then my final thing is a question of, does this have an effect for car share users, EV car share users, this increase?
So the cost I was just quoting to you all, we assume continued subsidy of the car share program. Does that make, is that clear? So in other words, we've kind of estimated that we'll continue to pay for the electrical costs of the car share program, so that's all contained within Mobile GR, and then the vendor who is supplying the operating, and then they bill us, and we have a little cost share and that kind of thing. So not to get too much in the weeds there. So I guess to be very just broad strokes, this is continuing to subsidize
Yeah.
the cost of the electricity for the DART cars.
As the mayor spoke about his experience as an owner, not owning and only renting, and I think I might be on the top end of users there, I still think that there might be some room, flexibility to charge EV car share users, but I'd love to hear from the public if the public's listening to this and has anything else to say.
Do you mean from charge the users within the program?
Yes.
Okay, so as another just like administrative cost of the program?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
especially if it preserves the longevity of this project.
Especially since we've got really high demand. It's not like these cars are sitting out there and nobody's using them. They are really in demand.
Trying to remember.
And then, quick, did you say, because I thought this number was crazy if true, did you say 30% of people who park in parking garages also use that pay like the hourly parking, also pay the app as well?
Nope.
Okay.
So what I was saying is of EV cars using our chargers, only 35% of them are paying the premium parking, because it's a
Okay.
second step.
Okay, I thought you were
kinda
saying
set
people
up
were
for
doing that.
failure.
I was going to say,
No.
who's going to a parking garage and paying the app?
No,
Okay.
no, they're 65% of them are not. And the thing is the way that we have it set up right now, this premium parking cost, you have to take 2 steps to pay for your charging spot.
Okay,
Which is really setting our customers up for failure in a little bit of way. What I've heard from customers a lot is, or not a lot, I don't want to give that, but what I have heard from some of our customers is, I didn't even know I was supposed to be paying for this a second time, right? They're used to paying at the charger, right? That's very normal. So they were like, well, I used my ChargePoint little RDIF thing, and you guys can tell I'm really deep in the industry. I don't know any of these terms. So I used my little thing, and it didn't charge me anything, or they think they're being charged and they don't really look at their thing. So they're like, why did I get a parking ticket? I used my little fob, and I'm like, well, because it's free except for the premium parking. So that's what it is. So does that help? Yeah. Those would have been crazy numbers. I like it. It's okay.
And I want to add Commissioner Sessa to the list too.
So I do not have 400,000 miles of charging, of driving on electric, but I do have a plug-in hybrid, so I'm sensitive to this notion. I think it's great that we're going to get in line with what the state says we're supposed to do according to weights and measures. But as I'm looking at level 2 chargers, I just pulled up my app just to see. Within about 3 blocks of here at Spectrum Health, there is a station that right now is charging 25 cents per kilowatt hour, but it states that it is variable over time, which I think it means, especially when we go to, because the city's got to pay for the electricity that we're reselling to people. It costs different, it has different levels at different times. I'm assuming we don't just pay a flat rate all day long. I mean, that's why I only charge in the middle of the night at home. The other thing that I see on here is that they have a station time rate while connected, which will encourage people to get off of the station once their car, if they show up and they plug in their car and they only need to be plugged in for 2 hours to get to their 80% charge. But if they leave it sit there for another 3 hours, they'll get charged $10 an hour for actually occupying, because their car is plugged in and they get occupied $10 an hour. They're plugged in, they're occupying the station. The station should be able to detect that and then charge them for just leaving their car there in a premium parking spot. I don't know if we want to do that, but I think that's a way to incentivize people to leave those open for the next car that comes in. And then I guess the last thing I would ask is, I'm not particularly personally not particularly price sensitive to that higher rate that the mayor suggested, but what I would say is that what we should do is make sure that we're somewhere in line with the market, like you stated up front. If that means 80 cents per kilowatt hour, then that's 80 cents per kilowatt hour. But if we want to leave ourselves that kind of headroom so that we don't have to redo this every 6 months or every year, I guess that's fine. But what I would encourage is that the way we price it is that it's priced at somewhere that it's in line with what the market would be.
Great, thank you. Yes, so there's two fees that would show up in the omnibus. One is the charging fee per the kilowatt hour, and the other is that overstay fee. So there'll be some grace period, maybe 15 minutes. And then what I've noted or recommended is a 25 cents a minute overstay fee after your grace period, which is essentially $15 an hour. So it's a super high price to sit there and take up the space, right? And I'm also interested in any thoughts y'all have about that.
Yeah, thanks. I also have a plug-in hybrid, so familiar with this. Would say agree with the variable pricing because, as consumers of electricity from consumers, we already have dynamic time pricing with like peak hours and off-peak and all that stuff. So, I mean, that was pretty much my question is like, was this 20 to 40 cents a minute intended to be like dynamic pricing, or was it intended to be like, oh, we can charge that much, but we'll set a fee and it will be that fee?
I had not thought to check about the dynamic pricing thing. I will look into that, but that would allow you, if you have a range of pricing, it allows me, instead of having to go back to the commission every year and adjust up, or to just have a set, like you're saying, just all the time. And that's one way to do it. You have like an average and you're like, okay, we're going to charge this all the time so it's easy for our customers to know what the price is going to be and it averages out. That's one strategy. But I will look into the dynamic pricing, and that is also a question I can ask of our partners at ChargePoint. How would that work? I'm sure that happens in other spots.
Yeah. Sorry, I have another question, but, okay, yeah. I mean, I guess I haven't used any of the city chargers because usually just charge at home, but, and I wasn't aware of the premium parking fee and having to like use the app, so it just seems very complex. And my strong suggestion would be to simplify the complexity of this process, both for the users and just like for just awareness, right? Because already as an EV user and having to navigate with like 5 different apps to figure out which one is for the right charger, and then you need the app, you like can't just pay with a credit card at the charger terminal itself. It all is like extremely unnecessarily complex. And so I would not advocate for adding any more app-based payments for this, right? Like, let's just keep this as simple as possible, make it really easy to understand what's going on, like have a sign that says like, this is what we're doing, or at least show up on the terminal for having the dynamic pricing, just because, yeah, there's a lot of unnecessary complexity in this industry.
Agree, and there is a sign, and it still doesn't matter. But agreed. I think simplicity for our customers is a really good criteria to add in there.
Yep. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say on the dynamic pricing, I don't think we should shy away from it, because the reality is, I think anybody that has a plug-in hybrid or an EV is well aware of pricing, because like my car will be on the charger for about 5 hours to get 16 kilowatt hours, if I remember right. And if I do that at night, it costs me about $2.50, or at least it did last summer, cost me about $2.50 to charge up. But if I let it charge at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it was like $10. It's like literally 5 times the price. And so I think most EV users are sensitive to that. And I don't think there are any that are not. And so I think we shouldn't be afraid of that. We should use the dynamic pricing. The reality is, if you're charging up your car in the middle of the day in one of our parking garages, you should expect you're going to be paying for the most expensive electricity you can. And that's just the reality.
Great. I have a couple questions for y'all, and then I really appreciate this, but I do think we want to move to our next thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And can I
great.
can I ask, or really quickly, I don't know on this particularly, but what I do know is setting policy, at least from a government point of view, and I am of the opinion that we should set a policy so that we don't have to go back regularly, right? As long as we're able to defend that. So I'm always behind that. If that means bringing it up to 80 cents after reviewing the dynamic pricing, I would definitely approve of that. And what it sounds like is, for most everyone, is that there could be an opportunity to increase that range of what we are charging. Is that what I'm hearing, to kind of sum everything up? Okay. All right.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is that y'all aren't against, one, I think you understand that this is a regulatory thing, that we do need to switch our price, the way we're charging, our charging style. But I also am hearing that y'all are like, maybe you're not charging enough. So what I want to do is make sure that I get y'all some better numbers to have the conversation. I do have those, but I just wanted to chat with you some more. I wanted to also add that we've worked with our Chief Sustainability Officer, that's Annabelle Wilkerson, and she also weighed in on the pricing and looked at things like what does Grand Rapids look like in kind of this area, and how much are level 2 stations go for, and of concern don't deter people from use. If we get pricing wrong. And I think, and what I'm hearing here is there's some insensitivity to pricing. And that's also been my experience, but I'm EV as well, but I also know that I don't represent everyone's experience. So I was interested to hear from the hybrids to EV, and I think that at some point there is sensitivity to pricing, right? And in our look at and research, it kind of more of like public forums like PlugShare or something where people are making comments, and Reddit where people are sensitive to pricing with EV charging, but it depends on the product. How quickly can they get charged? How convenient it is, and then what are they paying around? What is their access to other types of charging? One of the things going on in the city of Grand Rapids that the mayor will remind us all is that we don't have any DC or level 3 chargers within city proper. I think that's still accurate right now, that are open to the public. And so, and then our level 2 charging infrastructure is pretty limited. And the city-owned ones are definitely just a small little piece of the pie. So I appreciate kind of all of these other conversations. The direct questions I have for you all is with the overstay fee. I threw something that was common, like a 25 cents a minute / $15 an hour. Does that feel too many? Does that feel too little?
I'm of the mind that it should all be tethered to the market rate, basically. So
Okay.
an average of what's being charged within the city, because then, we don't have to come back every year and deliberate this all over again.
Great.
Agreed.
That's my approach, but I want to see how you all feel of it as users.
A couple quick comments. First
Yeah.
of all, my 80-cent number I threw out, let's be real clear, this is not what I'm suggesting you should charge. It's an up to permission, right? So I
correct.
expect you to go back and figure out what generally is charged by other people. The second thing is I would advocate for you setting our prices at level 3 standards. In other words, when you're setting within that policy range of up to 80 cents, I would say go look at what Tesla's charging, because if I'm parking in a city ramp and I'm going to see the Doobie Brothers, essentially you're giving me a convenience. And if I top up at it, I should be willing to pay more than I'm paying at the library. So, or at, Kmart, or Kmart's dead, at Meijer or something. But the point is there's a convenience premium factor, and there's always a convenience premium factor, frankly, to charging somewhere other than your home, and everyone who drives an EV gets that. Third point is, when we talk about market, I think we got to be a little careful, because this is an emerging industry that got heavily subsidized at the beginning. So if you start looking for, like, what is Corewell doing? Well, early days, people were giving away charging, which is not sustainable, makes it very susceptible to attack. That was the point I was making earlier, and doesn't allow you to grow your infrastructure. So there's a reason to build in a cost plus modeling for this. Lots of good public policy reasons to do that. Finally, I just want to point out that even if you were to go with 80 cents, that essentially winds up making the cost per mile for a decently efficient EV be about the same as the current price of gas. So nobody's suffering. They're getting internal combustion engine equivalency at 80 cents a kilowatt. So just want to put that out there.
Yeah, I understand that as a range for adaptability, not for You know,
Yep. So-
it's not our goal to reach the height.
So to get onto our next stuff, do you need a motion on this to
No.
give you permission to the 80 cents or not?
No, this was a
Okay.
discussion item, and the request, the request for, as we were having budget discussions internally, the request is always, what does the Mobile GR Commission think about this? And budget runs fast and furious, and then all of a sudden it's at a commission meeting. So I wanted to be able to have this conversation with you all and get your feedback. I will, this was perfect. I will kind of write this up as, this is the discussion that we had. Here's some of the feedback that we have from Mobile GR Commission. If there is an ask for like a formalized, memo or something, I'll let y'all know. But I think at this point, the discussion is great. The advisory nature of this board and being able to share that back with the commission, should that pop up. But they commonly do say, what did the Mobile GR Commission say about that? So I wanted to give you all the opportunity to have this discussion. Is there anything else that's popping up? And Janelle just pulled her microphone down, so maybe.
Just, I guess, out of curiosity, does the city own the infrastructure for charging, or were you still paying it off?
I believe we wrote a check up front. I don't think that we took a loan out for
Okay.
the charging stations.
I'm seeing thumbs up behind you.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, they're not that expensive. Now, the DC chargers, quite expensive, but yeah, right now, we put them in. But I think what I want to be clear about is that they were paid for, and then we started charging for use. So what we have not recovered with the current fee structure is the cost of investing in the infrastructure. And here we were talking about a couple of different ways of looking at that. Sometimes you put the cost of investing in infrastructure elsewhere, right? It's an amenity. This is kind of back to the mayor's point. It's an amenity within our parking, our mobility hubs, right? It's an amenity there, kind of like the dark car share and some things like that. So we have an investment that we make based on parking revenues, right? And there's another way you can do it is you can look for grants. That's another thing. We were talking about people giving them away. They were grants. And then there's also just, if we had to write a check, could we cost recover with these fees directly to add that infrastructure in there? So just want to give you a little bit more context. Yeah, of course, things. Okay, thank you so much. Anything else?
No, I think we're good to move on. And I know I've seen a few. I've seen some quotes from Max about the amphitheater and mobility access plan already. So looking forward to hear more about it.
Yes, thank you. So just kind of a quick high-level overview. As Commissioner Perez-Plesher mentioned, there's, I'm sure many of you get conversations from community. I know I have gotten this question weekly from the media for the past few months, but also from many people that I interact with of what's the city's plan for visitor access, for how we're going to adjust our transportation network in the downtown area with the addition of such a large venue that we see with the amphitheater. So what we're going to go over today is, and this was a comprehensive effort, one that I was really proud to be part of, but one that I just want to also express just thanks and appreciation to the wide variety of folks that were involved from the city level, our partners in the Office of Special Events, Office of Emergency Management, Grand Rapids Police Department, Grand Rapids Fire Department, our own traffic engineers and transportation planners, our team. James was an assistant project manager, did a ton of great work on this, same with a lot of people at Mobile GR. So just really appreciate all the work and effort went into this, and I'm really excited to kind of show our planning efforts and our proposal to the community about how we are going to offer up options for them to prepare. And then I wanted to open a discussion here from everyone here to hear about maybe thoughts, concerns, discussion points as representatives, community, things that you're hearing. But this is, I think, a really good opportunity to explore specifically mode shift in Grand Rapids, because what we are recommending to folks is this idea of the traditional way of driving to the front door of the event arena that maybe they have gotten used to in the past is going to be more difficult here, and that is something that we want to be cognizant of and hear from community that's a concern. But we feel like we're presenting a number of options for them to still make sure that's a safe and enjoyable experience and a great way really to experience and explore our city. So without further ado, I'm going to move forward here to one of the first things that we are offering to community. We wanted to create a single source of truth for all things related to how they interact with venue parking in the downtown area. So this is not limited to the amphitheater. It also explores the DeVos Place, the Van Allen Arena, and coming soon will be the Amway soccer stadium. So what's really cool about this website is, and we're going to do a little bit of a live demo in a moment, possibly. We have a little bit of a different tech situation here than we had yesterday, but okay, so cool. So we're going to show that. But what this does is this really provides folks with all the options that are available to them in one single place, all the different modes they could possibly use. So from transit options to if they want to reserve their parking ahead of time, which we'll talk about in a moment, if they want to come down the night of and park and what they'll need to walk, if they are pedestrians, what are the best pedestrian paths, if they're micromobility users, so it covers rideshare. So it covers all different modes of travel and gives people all the tools that they could possibly need, at least from our perspective, and we're open to other tools to come down prepared. And I think that's the key message we want to make here is because if you look at cities that have more dense event nights across the country, what is required is a little bit more preparation than possibly what we've had in the past in Grand Rapids. So I don't think that necessarily means that there's going to be any sort of difficulty experiencing this network. It just means you may have to kind of figure out ahead of time what your plan is to have the most enjoyable experience. So this website, I think, does a really good job of showcasing all those options. And like I said, we're going to go over it a little bit at the end. A concern that we've heard quite often from community, not so much from this board, but from community, is that there is a lack of parking available in downtown. So we, anecdotally, I've been in the parking operations business at Mobile GR for 9 years, and I tell everyone this: I have never seen every one of our ramps fill, and that's not just anecdotal. That's also data. We looked at our data, and they don't fill. So and that's just the publicly available, the most affordable ramps and lots. When we have Trans-Siberia Orchestra come downtown or Grand Valley graduations, these are our biggest events. We have double back-to-back ones. We will have ramps that aren't full that are 3 blocks away. So anecdotally, it was like, we know we have capacity, but we wanted to make sure we did a comprehensive data collection effort to make sure we were aligned with that. We have completed that. We're excited to soon share that full data report out with everyone here and the community. But what we know from that is generally we have 44,000 total parking spaces in the DDA boundaries. But within, and that includes private and restricted parking as well as public, but within 1/2 mile of the amphitheater venue, which is a little bit south of the, in general, that's on the very south end of the DDA boundaries, there are 8,863 publicly available parking spaces today. Grand Valley is going to be working to open up a number of their spaces over the summer, so this number should increase. However, even if we take the busiest nights in Grand Rapids history, parking-wise and event traffic-wise, and add in a full sold-out amphitheater night, we still have roughly 800 spaces that will be available within 1/2 mile. So we are very confident that the parking capacity is here. And I think it's really important to look at from a land use perspective, but also from a development perspective, as if, from our perspective, we want to make sure that we're utilizing this parking and that we're making sure that it's being filled up. So it was really important to get this data and solidify it, and then to identify ways to either connect people, because 1/2 mile, and many of these are closer than 1/2 mile, that's the farthest away possible, to find ways to connect people to the event venue from those locations, but also to make sure they're communicated where these are located and make sure people know about it. Because a lot of times when I talk to people about parking options, they say, I didn't know that even existed. So it's a big part of the website. Another big part of that is our reservation system for parking. That launched yesterday. We're super excited about this. When we look across the country, across the world at folks who have had the same problem of us, of having this sort of misalignment in terms of availability and utilization. One of the big solutions, or one of the best ways to solve that problem is to allow for pre-reservations. So what this does is this allows people to make choices before they come down, and where that can kind of help is there's a web map, and we'll show this in a little bit, and the web map will show if you can go 2 blocks away, you can save $16. And if you're making that decision 2 weeks ahead of time, it's a much easier one than night of. Night of, a lot of people are like, well, I'll just go to the closest ramp, and then that ramp is full, and then they don't have a backup plan. So what this allows you is to, if there is any sort of concern or anxiety about where you want to go, you can have that sort of predictability locked in, which is helpful. But also, I think it helps with spreading out the decision making when it comes to utilization, because having that price decision earlier as opposed to the convenience in the moment, from a behavioral perspective, I think helps spread out the utilization across the network. Accessible parking is so important to us. All of our parking operations downtown currently, so before the amphitheater comes in line, we have been extremely focused on providing accessible parking as approximate to the venue as possible. Of course, equity is a key city value. So what I mean by that is the requirements for ADA in a parking facility are based purely on the parking facility itself, not on the event venues that are adjacent. So for event nights, what we do in our arena ramps, or in the ramp that's in this building here for DeVos Place events, is we add additional ADA parking by using cones and staff to allow for a full support of ADA parking that's available adjacent to the event venue. We were really intentional about doing the same level of service for the amphitheater. So we are proud to announce and share with community that we will have the same level of ADA availability, which is we're going to be overly conservative in pre-reserving those spaces, and just making sure that there are always going to be accessible options for people to park that are adjacent to the arena, and the price structure for those will stay the same as they are at the amp. We'll always have availability at the amphitheater, and the price structure will stay the same that they are at the arena and the DeVos Place. So, and then in addition to that, one of the things that our planners identified early on was that for an arena event or for DeVos Place, there's a lot of space for pickup and drop off adjacent to the facilities. This won't be the case because we're about to talk about road closures in a moment. This won't be the case for the amphitheater. So we wanted to provide a designated location for pickup and drop off so that people weren't, if you had a temporary accessibility concern, or if you just were concerned about the walk and you still wanted to drop off, we wanted to have a designated location for that. So we are having that there as well. So we also, so on our website, we have a web map that shows all the available parking that is there, but we also wanted to identify a few facilities that we are confident will be relatively available and priced within a very reasonable market rate and within a 15 to 8 minute walk. And what we've also done on this walk, and we'll talk about this just in a minute, but we've increased the wayfinding and the walkability experience. We've worked with our partners at JRPD to make sure that these intersections are going to be have traffic control. So the safety is a really big component of this, and we're working with partners across the city to activate these pedestrian routes. So these are going to be designated pedestrian routes that we're hoping for is, so if you go to, let's just say, I won't name names, but just another amphitheater sort of experience across the state, and you are parking about an 8 to 10 minute walk away, and you're walking through a parking lot. What this walk will do is you're going to walk past restaurants, you're going to walk past bars and shops, and have public art and activation, and this is going to be, and we're going to be really intentional about making sure that these walk paths are very enjoyable, so folks aren't thinking about the walk. And like I said, safety is really important here, so that's why we have these suggestions for park and walk ramps. Obviously, you can park and walk from any of our facilities to the location, and safety will still be a key component. But I think having this be more of an experience, larger groups of people, the activation, like whether it's musicians or artists, will be really cool. So excited about that. As I mentioned before, we work with our friends at Flywheel as well as the Downtown Grand Rapids Inc. to really build on DJI's wayfinding system from a pedestrian perspective. We're going to be massively filling the gaps between those two. What I wanted to, what was really important to me as someone who works in from the behavior side and from the community engagement side is I just feel like signage needs to be over the top. When you leave a location, I want you to see that sign, be really obvious, and then point you to the next one and just have as many as possible. I just feel like there's the right-of-way space being filled with signs is a good thing. So that's the foundational work that we're hoping to have be ready and completed by the launch date on May 15th. If not, it will be very shortly soon after there. So signs like this one will be able to connect you from ride rideshare location and pickup and drop-offs, micromobility drop-off locations, shuttle drop-off and transit drop-off locations, as well as our parking facilities, so that as a pedestrian, you don't need to rely on your phone. You can just look and experience the city, see all that cool art, and also find your way. So this was a really cool part of it. Part two, which we're having a conversation later today with Flywheel about, is moving towards more of a guerrilla approach and using things like intentional graffiti and public art and street art to also add to that wayfinding. Because one thing that I've noticed a lot of, and Jessica mentioned earlier about the sign that was being ignored in the parking ramp, is that human beings and community members have started filtering out official signs. So we want to find ways to kind of get through that filter with just public art or just creative ways to add to the wayfinding experience.
On those signs, because the walking estimates are massively pessimistic. I mean, I could probably do a marine crawl at the speed you're proposing for those distances.
I know, and so it's
Walking is about a 15-minute mile.
yeah, it's a tough estimate to make. So those that's just for example, so it might not be the exact accurate estimate. But for the signage and the walk estimates, it's tough. We obviously lean towards the conservative estimate because we don't know everyone's level of ability and walking speed. And if anything, hopefully we're underselling it so that the walk is quicker and then they're excited. But that's a good point to talk about, and maybe we can work that into some of the signage. Another element of that I just want to mention is when we talked with folks about their concerns of parking 3 or 4 blocks away, a lot of them said that a big barrier for them was not being able to see the destination. So when I talked to folks about why at another venue where it's a large parking lot that you're walking through, why is that more enjoyable than walking through a downtown area? And they said, well, I don't know where I'm going. I can't find where I'm going. So this, I think, helps with that. Being able to see this, at least a sign that tells you you're going in the right direction, can hopefully help. And yeah, similarly, Detroit and many other cities have a very similar one, and the walks are overestimated as well. So I think it's tough to balance there. So road closures is a big question that we get a lot. So I think sharing with this body for when you talk with community is important. At this time, the Market Street southbound exit from 131 will be closed on amphitheater nights, as well as south of Cherry, all the way to just north of Bartlett on Market. And then there's a little bit of closure on Finney. There's going to maintain access to the gas station there. So just a little bit south on Finney past Cherry up to the Williams Street intersection, and then westbound on Williams Street. That's a one-way, so that will be closed as well. This is, we're doing this for a wide variety of reasons, but this is primarily from a public safety perspective from our traffic control and our traffic engineers teams. This is the determination that they made. What this will also be supported with is a number of GRPD traffic control officers at key intersections throughout the city, as well as our mobile GR event staff. So it's not just these locations that we will be doing traffic control at. These are just where the complete closures are. And probably not needed as much for this group, but this was the presentation we gave to the public yesterday. So just, we're going to have we've worked with local influencers, we've worked with local community group to do a lot of content creation. We're still in that process, but we're really excited to just show how these planning options and these planning efforts are going to be interacting with our community, with our transportation network. We're going to do a lot of that on social media, so really encouraging people to follow our social media channel, but also we're going to be doing proactive, social media ads, as well as ads with and marketing with some other partner organizations. So we really hope to get this communication out. We've worked with the ticket venues to make sure when folks purchase their ticket, they should get a message with this information. 3 days before the event, they'll get a message with this information, and then the morning of, they'll get the message. I think planning ahead, predictability is really important here. I know there's lots of folks in here who've heard this information before, but generally in the transportation circles, so much of transportation congestion and strain is caused by people looking for parking. So we want to avoid that. We want to give them options, have them determine. We've worked with Google and Apple Maps to be able to tell people if they put the amphitheater as a location the night of, they will say this is restricted. You cannot go here unless you have a pass, basically, or you have an accessibility placard. So it will force them to choose other locations. Now they could ignore that and still go there. So there's going to be some strain, but I think even if we get from a parking operation perspective, even if we get 20 to 30%, and we're hoping to get more of people pre-reserving parking, it will be a massive difference in terms of the downtown network approach for how people explore parking. So we can do a little bit of a live demo, but I do want to mention quickly, there is, and this question came up last time, and we do want to have the discussion here too. So our max parking rates are, there is no recommendation from staff to change that event max to 25, or from $25 to a different number. However, the way our event rates are structured are on what we call an event variable rate system. So that's based on proximity to event venues, and obviously this is a big change to that. So we do want to have a little bit of a discussion in a moment about that potential change and what we are, as staff, are recommending, and we want to hear your thoughts on recommending for the lots that are more proximate to the amphitheater. So here's just the website quickly. As I mentioned before, we have multiple different venues available, and we're hoping to maybe even build this out with a few more. But right now, we're going to focus on the amphitheater, as it's the new one coming up. So if you click that, you get your multiple modes different modes of transportation, and we also have our parking reservation option. And if we scroll down here, oh, sorry, we're going to click it. I forgot. So we click that, and then we go to Lionel Richie, which is on the 15th. And you can see here are the different options for folks. It tells you the full price, which includes all the fees that they could possibly pay. So I mentioned $25 was the maximum rate. There is a $2 fee for reservation, so that's why you see $27 there. But again, this helps show that there's an $8 parking ramp at Pearl and Ionia. And if folks want to not pay the full $27 for that other facility, they can pay that one and enjoy the walk. Maybe go out to dinner halfway or go to a shop or a restaurant. Yep, go ahead.
So I'm thinking, this is great. I'm thinking about the difference between, when I go to Chicago and I'm mucking around looking for parking, and they have Park Hero or something it's called there.
Yep.
But back in the day, right, you're trying to get somewhere and you sort of go around downtown and you shop and you're like, oh, there's a banner out, there's a placard out there that says $15. Let's drive around for a while and see if we can find one for 10. That's not great, right? And we want to
Yes.
avoid that. And then I'm thinking the contrast to that to like when I go to the Toronto airport, it is really, really obvious to me what the hierarchy of cost is, and it's really obvious even on the signs at the places themselves. So I'm wondering, and we're suggesting that we don't just do this on the app and on the internet, but like when you show up at the highest priced places, maybe at the bottom of the sign it's like, want cheaper parking, then it gives you somewhere else you could drive off to. Because I'm thinking in terms of public perception, what people are going to do, I would bet, is go to the one that looks the most desirable and is the closest, and then they will tell all their friends, I can't believe it, I had to pay $25 to park. And they may just not know in the moment that they could go to that $8 one. And then if the word on the street is, oh my gosh, we now look like Chicago, all of our parking is crazy, we'd way rather have the proper message, which is your message, which is you want to walk 4 blocks, you'll save a lot of money.
Absolutely. What is difficult is, so I love that idea, and I think what we are going to definitely be doing is doing a lot of the signage in the facilities themselves to say, did you think you paid too much for parking today? Here's options to avoid it. What's difficult is the on-street signage with communication, and that's what leads to the shopping around thing, to your point. And what our GRPD folks and our traffic engineers are concerned about is if that shopping is coming down to Cherry and Market, it's going to be difficult because there's really very limited options there, and those are probably all going to be reserved ahead of time or for ADA access. So that's where, and because of the very nature of this isn't a Griffin's season where people learn and then the next week they come and they learn. That this is a lot of people are coming for the first time or the only time. So that's where the preemptive communication will really focus on. But I do like that idea a lot. And like I said, we're going to take it into our in-facility messaging, but I think finding a way to maybe say like, this is the most expensive, even be blunt, I don't mind that. So we can talk about that, but I like that idea.
Max, I want to, because I'm starting to see hands go up, of course. I want to kind of gauge where else you're going.
Can I just wrap it up real quick?
Yeah, if you can wrap it up, and then we'll kind of start opening up too.
Perfect. Thank you. Just mentioned we have the reservation option there. We have this park and walk option. Of course, this is for walking in general too, and we're going to try to find a way to message that. But really here where we're seeing a lot of the community concern is with this idea of parking, and they see it as there's no approximate parking. So we're trying to get the messaging across that this is a park and walk situation. And as I said before, we're going to really focus on our communication efforts on how this walk is enjoyable and safe for community members. We have a map of additional parking, as well as some links to our parking partners who provide public parking. I'm hoping to get Grand Valley on there very soon. This shows the wide variety of available parking in the area. So really excited to highlight that. I mentioned earlier the accessible parking and drop-off information. This is just a little more detailed there. Our dash route is going to have a specific event route map for amphitheater nights. So we want to advertise and talk about that. We were really excited from our partners at the Rapid to share yesterday, and we're excited to share here today, if you didn't hear, that they're going to be extending service on amphitheater nights to later in the evening. And that includes the dash, so we're really excited about that, and to provide these public transit options. And the option that we are pushing the most, if you scroll down one little bit more, is anyone who's worried about parking concerns. There are many park and ride lots throughout the city that folks can park at and take a transit service in. And if they're going to the amphitheater, the late night will get them back in time. So excited for those. Those are all free to park options. And then we just have some information on just operational details related to micromobility zones. We're doing some, at least initially, and excited to talk more about our RFP for our micromobility services. But at least initially, with the technology we have, we're doing some restrictions on those pedestrian-heavy corridors because we don't want to have the heavy use of micromobility on the sidewalk on those areas. But generally, we're expanding designated parking zones and doing a lot of work with the vendor there to communicate where to go. And there are very approximate designated parking zones for shared micromobility users. Rideshare is was a big concern from our public safety folks, and we feel very comfortable that we've worked out a relationship with Uber and Lyft and our taxi partners throughout the city to designate locations. Uber and Lyft trips will not be able to begin anywhere in this black zone there outside of the green on the Fulton Street Bridge. We're going to be hooding all of the meters along that bridge. So I mentioned the looking for parking. The number two and the newer big concern for folks around these is Uber and Lyft drivers parking in the middle of the street, getting out. And what that often does is that it will take traffic control officers away from that to go talk with them, and then you have a traffic control situation that's not ideal. So we're hoping with this restriction, and Uber and Lyft has seen a lot of success across the country with doing something similar to this, will really help funnel that traffic to a singular location. And then, of course, we have our Motu app, which is just the best way for folks, or one of the best ways for folks to pay and extend their on-street parking experience. So like I said, I have a few things that I want to pose for questions, but that can come after your questions. I'm happy to
Yeah,
entertain
let's
them
start
open.
there. And then I have Commissioner Miguel Cipriano first, Commissioner Rohr, I see Commissioner Sessa, I see Commissioner Wesselink. Anyone else? Oh, and please go ahead, Commissioner.
I'll make them brief.
Cipriano.
I'm curious if the Park Mobile logo is going to cause any confusion. I know back in the day that was a big thing. We were switching over to Motu. I feel like we just got over that. I'm curious about that. And because of the air park, when people are like, we would get calls at Mobile GR, I mean, like, hey, you guys are charging me $50, and it ended being air park. Because people just see parking, it's in the city, they're like, you must be doing this. Just the same way we get complaints about the bus, and they're like, that's the Rapid.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about that. We can't talk about the ADA without, I think, quoting Dave Wachowski and reminding all of us that the ADA is the floor, and reminding that the city value of innovation, that we should be striving for more than just ADA compliancy. When we're talking about the dash, I think comfort is key, so I would love for us to review and look at, or at least talk about it in some meeting, that we're dealing with a multi-billion-dollar industry with the car. People know that they're going to get stuck in traffic on big days like this, but they're willing to sit in traffic because they get to sit in a car, listen to radio, be on their phone, and not have to worry. We have to somehow imitate that experience for people when they're waiting at the bus. It's just that whatever the term is for that metal pole and the little dash, that's not appealing to anybody. So we have to at least start thinking and planning, how do we make that to a better experience? I know that was early on in Dash 3.0 conversations. We need to resuscitate that. And finally, micromobility zones. We've got to look at those polygons. I get constantly stuck in the road. I got passed by a GRPD cruiser really close. They were not patient enough to wait because I was on Ionia. that's why our own staff members, they're not patient enough. So how do we expect a regular resident in a car to wait behind somebody that's using the micro-mobility device appropriately in the road? We got to look at, otherwise you're just stuck in the road going, that's dangerous. So please, let's review those polygons for those restricted zones. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. So I wrote it down, so hopefully I get them all, but if not, please remind me. So first, Park Mobile, totally agree. One interesting factor is the parent companies are now the same for both. So interesting to see if there is some way to coordinate there, but we are being intentional in messaging, and that's, we're cognizant of that. It is difficult. I think there may be some confusion there because obviously, so for everyone else, Park Mobile used to be the city's provider for the Motu, the service that we now use, Passport, and the white label app for Motu. And there are many cities that use Park Mobile for their on-street parking reservations. So right now, if you open up the Park Mobile app in Grand Rapids, there are no on-street parking options. So hopefully they can at least get that. But we might be able to work with them and say, hey, if you are looking for on-street, here's the Motu app. There may be less of a concern from them now because of the, the combination there. But thank you for bringing that up. But they were the only vendor, at least that we were able to find, that would able to provide the service that we required for this. For ADA, I think I totally agree with you, and I want to highlight what, at least from my perspective, is the requirements for ADA spaces for a ramp of, let's say, this is very rough numbers here, but let's say a ramp is 300 spaces. The requirements for ADA spaces are 4 to 5 to 6, and we're doing 60. So what we are doing is we're exceeding because we're not basing it on the requirements for that facility, we're doing it on the requirements for the community and the event space. So I think what we are doing is going above ADA requirements, and we're saying we want to make sure there's accessibility. Now, in terms of the engineering and design requirements, I think those are more based on ADA. But what I said at the press conference yesterday, and I want to reiterate here, if anyone hears from folks from community who says, I am not able to have an accessible experience, please connect them to us. We will, like I said, equity is a city value. We take that seriously. We will give all the attention that's required to make sure they have an accessible experience. But I did want to highlight, we at Mobile GR, the city of Grand Rapids, when we do our parking operations, we do not base it off ADA requirements. We base it off what we see and hear from community in terms of what they need for spaces that are required. In terms of comfort on the dash and stops specifically, some hope there is the increase in frequency will help, and this adjusted route is theoretically, we're going to learn a lot, I'm sure, on the first night and other nights, is theoretically going to avoid the heart of the congestion areas while still serving the stops that are approximate to the event venues. So we're hoping that the goal with that route is to keep the frequency level at that 8 minutes or less. So that helps a little bit, but you're right, and stop amenities has been a big part of the conversation. I don't think we'll have anything ready, or I know we won't have anything ready for the launch here, but as we go through the summer and we do our community engagement on the dash, but also on the amphitheater and the event venue experience, I think that's a really good point to bring up, especially when we have a lot of intentional effort going into activation of these areas already. We've talked a lot with DGRI and other partners about like seating options and folks for just the general pedestrian activation experience. So I think we can loop those in. And then for micromobility, and you're on the RFP panel review, I do think that's a concern and one we're looking at. However, that was a primary, those concerns that you mentioned were a primary focus for us in our RFP requests document. And I'm excited to share with you and other folks as we go through that process. I think there are some solutions. I know there are solutions out there in the community, and it's something that we have made a very strong priority for going forward with a new or a new contract for this service. The current geofencing with GPS signals is not working, and I think we can tailor and move things as much as we want. The technology does not exist in the current things to be precise enough to deal with sidewalks and streets. So we can, every time we try to move a polygon one way or another, it just results in either it doesn't get geofenced or it does get geofenced in an improper way. It's not finite enough or specific enough to address that, but there is technology out there that does exist, and we made it a priority, one of our top priorities in requesting in our RFP requests. So happy to share those with you once we get them.
Thanks, Max. I've got Commissioner Rohrer next.
Max and team, this is great. Thank you for sharing it. I feel generally confident that it's probably going to be a good experience for people when they first, at the first event. I want to second Commissioner Miguel Cipriano's point about the stop amenities. I realize that, we can't snap our fingers and make it happen, but 10 years of living in Europe, I can tell you that it was more common than not by like a factor of 98% to 2%, where you had a pole or you actually had some sort of a sheltering structure and benches, because that would also go along with people with disabilities. It's something I think we should look at, especially around these venues, because they're going to be, when people are going to choose to use the bus, it will make it better. So a better experience for them. I realize that that's down the road, but I think we should think about that and figure out how we can add that in. Maybe not everywhere in the city, but certainly in this place. The other question I have is, you had mentioned, and I think it's really great, you have the data on the parking spaces on the busiest night, and we still have empty parking spaces. Do we have any sort of way, or have we considered a way to roll out some sort of live parking reality for people? I realize that we want to get people to reserve in advance, and I think your estimate is right now 30%. So that's 3 out of 10 people, or 3 out of 10 cars coming downtown for an event have reserved in advance, but that's still 7 cars looking around to start going shopping. We're going to tell people, don't go to this location. They're still going to go to that location. But if we had the ability to deploy actual live, through an app, or if they've got to do it on the web, on their phone, whatever. Everybody's got one of these in their pocket today. There's no reason why, and I know that the technology is available. Again, 10 years of living in Europe. 10 years ago in Europe, I could literally drive sometimes up to a parking garage and know exactly that I had to go to the 3rd level, and I would have to go to zone D, because that was where the only spot was. And we don't need to be that granular, but if we want to direct people to the ramps that have availability, I think that would be really helpful. Again, down the road, it's an investment in technology, but I know the technology exists.
Certainly. First, I just want to just echo the similar sentiments to Commissioner Miguel Cipriano and just say we hear you about the dash stop amenities, and I think that's something we can really focus on and appreciate the feedback there. So this is a difficult one for me because I'm not a transportation planner by background, or I'm not a data person. I'm from the human approach, and I look at the the behavioral side, and from a user design lens is my primary. So when I explored and looked into and researched this idea of like a live map around parking occupancy, one of the biggest barriers that we see across the transportation world is that the people who are using for digital wayfinding purposes, it's a complete monopoly of Google and Waze and Apple Maps, and asking someone to add another app to that or another service is really difficult, and we don't see a lot of utilization. So what we have started conversations with, they do it in some cities. We're a little bit smaller than some of them, so we're hopeful to get that utilization on there from a digital perspective. So we could create a web map where we show parking occupancy. It would be it'd be expensive, and it would be something that would have to be updated by staff quite frequently for a digital purpose, and I worry about the utilization efforts of it. If you're doing pre-planning, it's one thing, but night of, even with 10-minute update frequencies, they would be pretty far behind, and because our ramps, they fill up so quickly. So if you're about to leave your home, you take out your app, and obviously we're assuming no one's driving while using the app, so if you take out your app and you look and you say, okay, the DeVos Place facility has 60% occupancy, great, I should be able to go there. By the time you get downtown, it's most likely full. So those things are difficult. So what we focus on primarily is the on-site live time updating, and what you said about like if you look at the facility, you can see this is full. What we've also worked with, because we're anticipating more of our facilities, not all of them, but still more of our facilities hitting capacity and filling, is we work with our parking operations team to have this a human being out there who does an A-frame that says this is full, but here's where you go, and being able to talk with people about it. So I appreciate the idea in digital, and we're exploring it, but I think where I see some concern is if we create our own version of it, it's going to be really tough for community to embrace it and use it. So what we're pushing the most is working with, and we've had really good strides made with Apple, Waze, and Google over the past 6 months even, with integrating our data and information, specifically around road closures, but even with them, so that we can have it so when people are looking at these facilities is on Google Maps or in their, car, and it's attached to those, that it's part of that. So that's just my thought process there. Still open to feedback, and that's an ongoing conversation, but
Well, the one other note is we do have live information right in front of the lot, which is not helpful for kind of what we're talking about, kind of quick pre-planning, right? Like I'm on my way, what's available? But once you're in front of that lot, we have those, we just put in those digital signs a little bit ago. So I just wanted to,
Yep, definitely.
because you may not be using our lots very often. Some of y'all at the table, a lot of us we're walking around downtown, right? We're not really using these as a customer that often. So I just wanted, if y'all haven't seen that yet, it's when you come to Government Center, you'll see them out front, and it actually is live updating how many spots are left. Have you noticed that? Okay, great.
And it is another thing where if we look at from like a solutions perspective, it's where reserve parking helps a ton, because right now we have very little idea sometimes on the demand that's going to be coming down. So if a concert, for instance, says we're going to have 10,000 people, but those were 10,000 tickets sold to resellers, and actually only 8,000 come down, and then there's 4 weddings going on that night that we don't know about. It's hard to judge the exact demand, but reservation parking should give us every single night an idea. Once we get us, kind of a methodology of determining that, right, we can kind of be like, okay, there's twice as much reservations tonight than we're used to. Something else is going on. And so that should hopefully help again with that in-person signage. We can say this ramp is full quicker and direct people. But it's a great thing to bring up. It helps with this predictability aspect. And again, that idea of avoiding people looking around and searching for parking. So yes, thanks for bringing it up and sharing. Appreciate it.
I'll mention I have Commissioner Sessa and Commissioner Whistling next in that order. I'm looking at time. I want to maybe close this up in about 15 minutes, so we have 30 minutes for the rest of the agenda. So, just putting that out there.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I think this is really fantastic. So I really commend you for all the work that you've done on this. I'd only seen sort of the news coverage from this because I was out of town yesterday, but I would say they did you a disservice. I think that, you've really put a lot of effort into trying to make this as clear and easy to understand as possible. So thank you, first and foremost. I have a few comments. Mostly, I like the website you have and trying to make it easy and linking to that when people buy tickets so they can see everything. Particularly the map with the location of all of the ramps and how far it is to walk from that. I would suggest, if it is possible, to have something similar for like transit stops. Like, for the DeVos place, the Laker line and Silver line are right outside. So if we can sort of do the similar thing where it's like, okay, this is like a bus stop and this is which routes go there. So you can kind of already have like some idea from that perspective too. And hopefully just, give people more of a sense of where the rapid even goes, because I'm sure many people don't know. Related to that, I know that, the road closures and managing the traffic related to that, I understand having all the cars like driving past is not ideal, but I do know that some of these will affect rapid routes, I believe. And, I've already experienced this, like going to, Griffin's games at the arena and having the buses be rerouted. I think that should probably be publicized more, that, just a heads up, like this is the different route and where it will be stopping, because that is very confusing. But also as a suggestion for, future investment, as we think about like mobility blueprint, all that stuff, how can we maybe have bus-only lanes, or bus-only routes? If we can close the street to like most traffic, except the buses can still go, that there are way fewer buses than there are cars. So, it's more efficient anyway. I think that would be really helpful, and also just incentivize people to maybe think about taking that as an option, because if they're sitting in traffic and the bus drives right by them, they're like, well, maybe I should have done that. So, yeah, I think those are my suggestions. Of course, I also support, improving the experience for transit users, adding more shelters and benches and waiting areas everywhere we can is a great thing to do. And yeah, I would also say, if we can publicize that the Rapid will be running later on event nights, that's also very important. Because like for me, when I heard that, I was like, that is like a game changer. Because before, if you go on a Saturday, the bus stops running at 9:30, so it doesn't really work. But now it's going to 11:30, and that is, yeah, it is a game changer. So I think we need to make that really clear. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So first, I wanted to say thank you for the kind words. That means a lot, so I appreciate it. And second, the website, I love that idea for, a similar sort of, it wouldn't be park and walk, but a similar sort of map, so ride and walk or transit and walk idea. So I will get the team working on that right away. That's great. For rapid detours, I know the rapid, and I hate to speak for them. I don't know if Kevin, or Commissioner Westlake, if you're able to add to this here, but I know that they have been able to reduce as much detours as possible, and that's been their approach. And I feel like the number is pretty low from what I recall in terms of impact from at least specifically the amphitheater. Bus-only lanes is something we've talked about a lot. It's primarily the concern comes from, and this is, again, get back to the human element of it, is whenever, so if a traffic control, officer is working and they allow a bus in, 4, 5, 6 cars just immediately go in, and then they're stuck in there, and then it creates this headache. So it doesn't mean that we're not going to do it, but when we initially talked about it, they're like, we need to find a solution for that. And that's difficult to do because they've tried bus only in the past. So what we've done instead is again, work with the rapid on minimal detours, especially for the dash and other ones that we're seeing here, but we're trying to find ways to kind of avoid traffic. But I do like that idea, and we are going to keep exploring that with them to see if there's a way to do it, because I do think that would be a really impactful, way to not just advocate and advertise for transit, but to make it an effective way to get around downtown. And then, yes, I agree. We're so excited and appreciative of the Rapid for extending that service. That is huge. It is a game changer. They're doing it at their own cost, so very appreciative there. And we, as part of our communications campaign, which is starting this week, proactively and pushing on the community, that's going to be a huge part of it. Because I know that is a concern from the community, including myself, in terms of if transit's even an option because of that fear of a 9:30 cutoff. So yes. So thank you for your comments. Appreciate it.
All right, Commissioner Wesselink.
Yeah, just to echo, I really appreciate the partnership on this too. I think hopefully it's a great opportunity for people to kind of experience transit for the first time, and maybe if they have as they see it work, I think it could be a great thing for all this. Definitely echo the two about looking at stop amenities, wayfinding, ways we can enhance the transit experience. Really encourage us to look at all of that, of course. A couple things, just is it posted anywhere when the last pull-out is from Central Station? Because as a patron, that's what I would want to know specifically, I think. Go ahead.
Well, so it was publicly announced for the first time yesterday, so I don't think we have it on our, but we can work with the Rapid.
Yeah, because I mean, that's, if you're by Central Station ahead of this, then you're good. The other thing, not related to that, but is there anything about, or any directive about bicycle parking for the amphitheater for that, and that's in this as well?
So it's not on the website quite yet because we're still finalizing, but we will be there well before the launch date. We have, there is a bicycle requirement from the facility, but I don't think it's been completely finished quite yet. So we want to make sure it's finished, and then we take the pictures. But it is something that will be present for the night of, and we're going to make sure it's on the page.
So there'll be a on-site or adjacent to the site bike parking area then in general?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a requirement. So when they went and did their planning approvals at the Planning Commission, there was a requirement for so many, bike parking spaces. And if you roll down Market right now, you'll see a bunch of them in front.
Okay.
So there were, the construction, they are gonna get it done, right? So, but we're right up to the wire here. So, as Max says, they're still installing things. They're still finding, just sanding around the edges, as the mayor would say, on getting this construction done. But I did see those installed the other day, and they look really, really great. The other thing they helped us out with is they used the Market lot for staging, for construction staging. That's where they had their main trailers and things for their leadership. And the Market lot did not have an accessible pathway from the lot to the sidewalk to get you out there if you are in a mobility device or had mobility limitations. They have cut that out for us and put it in, even though we had an agreement that they would repave and put it back the way it was. We asked them, and they were happy to take care of this. And so I know you all are probably going to go down there and check things out. You'll see a trench is being dug. I mean, it might have concrete by now, but they were working on that for us too. So an improvement to that lot there to make sure that we can we can address folks with ADA challenges.
And just to build on that just a little bit, we've done a few site visits, and what I think is, from a accessibility standpoint, the grade from the market lot to the actual seating or the observation area of the amphitheater is the same, basically the same grade. We're talking about maybe inches in different, and the journey there is a very short one. So this is a really, at least from my perspective, this is relative to our other facilities across the city, this is a very accessible situation. So happy for that. Any other further questions? Commissioner Wissling? Okay. I did want to, just before we end on this, I would really like to get your thoughts on the pricing proposals. So as I mentioned, when we did our competitiveness parking rate framework, we built in, I heard earlier mentioned about market rate. Our mindset is always to be at or below market rate, near but below market rate, and we are really just interested in exploring. So there's going to be facilities that are approximate to the amphitheater now that we would like to align to similar pricing to our facilities that are close to the arena and the DeVos place. So obviously, historically, those would have been more on the periphery, and they would have been a longer walk to something like the arena, so they were a lower rate. So Jessica has some more detailed if there is interest in that, but just interested in thoughts on that and maybe impacts to the community.
Yep, and I just lost power to my computer with all my notes, so we're gonna wing it. So basically, broad strokes is that we have that max special event rate of $25. Now, the way your omnibus schedule is with fees at the city is that every single lot and ramp has its own line item in the omnibus, so try not to, get your eyes crossed while you're looking through that. So you'll notice lots and lots of line items where it'll have a code. They make it really simple when you look through that during budget season with the commission. And so the things that you might see recommended to the city commission are some changes. And those changes are not to increase the amount of the rate at all. It is to increase that particular facility's ability to charge a higher special event rate. But we're staying at our max of 25. We're not suggesting a higher tier of pricing for an absolutely sold out night. So we're seeing that. So what you would see if Max, if you go back to your map of where all of our parking facilities are, I think you, or James, Devin, someone. So if you look on that map, you can generally look at where those closest facilities are, and I'm thinking about things like the market lot. The market lot is right there, but it was kind of over by itself, and it didn't, we didn't really have a lot of daily demands. It had a flat $8 a day fee, and we didn't have things like the per half hour costs that we have on our other off-street facilities. So that's one where you'll see a lot of changes because we also didn't have the special event rate was very, very low. So what you'll see in that omnibus suggestion, you might see is that you would see things like the market lot have something added where it says special event max $25. There'll also be something that says base fee, right? And that'll be a little higher too. So it's kind of like when we were talking about the EV charging kilowatt hour price, you put a range on every one of your parking facilities so that you can have options based on whatever the demand is. So it's kind of this congestion demand pricing on your facilities. So yeah, thanks. That's cool. So that is 6A area is another one where you'll see prices, the max cost of the event rate. I think right now it's like at $8, so we wanted to adjust those fees in the omnibus. Now, so my question for you all is, what are you thinking about? How are you feeling about, without me just showing you, here's where it was and here's where it's changing, just understanding that the change in the omnibus is so that we can have the option to charge a higher price because of the proximity and estimated attendance. Let's go here.
I want to frame my response and I think we should be thinking about it because the public is going to hear this, is I'm hearing, do we want to create more funding for mobile GR amenities? Yeah. great. Yes, that's what I want to hear, because that's where that money goes to, is that increase is going to go into all these great programs that you and your staff manage and are dreaming up. Yes. My answer would be yes.
Anything that ties us closer to matching what a private company can match was better, because that does get us more amenities.
Yeah, I have no problem with this.
Can y'all be more specific? This is good. You're like, I don't have any issues. Why?
Oh, just that, I think, as we've talked about before, having the flexibility to be able to adjust this sort of thing makes a lot of sense, because, we're not always going to be in the same situation. And, especially on like a triple, quadruple whammy, whatever we're going to have, if we can adjust this accordingly, that makes sense. So, yes.
Yeah.
So I think Janelle, you were reaching for your microphone, then Kevin.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it's safer if people park in a larger number of parking ramps rather than concentrated in just one. That's a lot of congestion. A lot of people like waiting for cars to come out of a ramp or into it. And so we're talking about a lot of foot traffic here. And so there's going to be a lot of people like crossing the street. And we don't want them to be like hit by a car. So that's good.
Yeah, definitely supportive. I mean, especially with all the different venues coming online, there's going to be a lot of variety in terms of what you're going to need to do in terms of making parking work on a given event night. So definitely supportive.
Yeah, same, supportive. The one thing I would say is I think you're right, Max. Slightly below market means these are public amenities, and if we keep it a little bit below Ellis, can we name them here? Well, I already did. If we keep it a little bit below them, pricing will incentivize behaviors. I think the other thing we need to really think about too is because now we're about to have 3 venues in the direct downtown area, looking at, is the pricing the same every night for every venue? There may need to be a structure in place where sometimes that Market Street ramp is going to be the most expensive, but then there's going to be other times where it's the least expensive. And as long as we're doing that, I think we're actually incentivizing the kinds of behaviors we want, because as Commissioner Ray said, if you don't do that, there's going to be times where people are just going to, I'll go to the one that's closest, right? It's human nature, at least American human nature, to, park as close as you can to the door, and then everybody wants to be there. And so I think through that incentivization, I think we'll actually get to a better usage of all the facilities we have.
You just described our process. It's a congestion demand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Demand pricing. So great. You're hired.
I would add too, and this is me just talking as me, I'll say as a commissioner. Having been here on this commission for a few years, I know that there was even a moment where I think there was a push to say, let's have in policy that we have a percentage underneath what market is. And I don't know if I agree with that. I think we need to be lenient, or we should not have anything specifically in policy that market providers can look at and make a judgment on. But I've always liked the idea of mobile GR is their parking structures are a little bit less than market, but still able to increase according to market, right? And so I think we're going to see this summer some changes in market rates, and so I think we need to follow in line with that.
Thank you. And that's a conversation, I know named Ellis. Ellis is a big operator in town along with us, but there are many other folks that operate parking in town, either privately or, kind of their own organization does that. Or like Max was talking about earlier, our friends over at GVSU, they have started to get into the public parking game, and they come to their city partners and they say, hey, how do y'all do pricing? And we say, get set by the city commission. But we also talk about the conversations that you all have here, and we haven't had many pricing conversations in the last couple of years, and this is where I'm really, I really appreciate you all sharing your thoughts, because we just don't, because we're such a big public parking operator, the city is. we are setting, we are helping influence the market, right? And I was hearing what some of you were saying is it's nice that it's a public amenity and it's a little cheaper than the market, but we're really the big part of the market. We're sort of setting, not sort of, we are setting the market for the most part. As much as, you know, I've heard folks say, well, what is someone else charging? They looked at the city and they go, what is the city charging? So it's kind of a back and forth. So I appreciate you all kind of having some of these thoughts out. Any other thoughts around pricing?
I'm sorry, one other thing I'll mention is that when we had these conversations before, anything we could do with that sort of dynamic pricing to encourage utilization of the dash or other modes of transportation, so cheaper to park farther away, which I think would still be the standard, I appreciate and encourage that.
Yep, and I will add that there are still like kind of those bargain shopper opportunities in other facilities. So the further away, the less expensive it gets. And other operators in town, they also respond that way. If they're a lot that's a little farther out, they're not charging a max rate. They're trying to get those bargain shoppers. So great point.
I want to make sure I want to make sure we have enough time. So seeing no other comments, and I'm making a last look around. All right, I think we're good to go to the Mobile GR Commission discussion and follow up on working groups.
Great, this is all you.
All right. Good. I was wondering who was going to start us off. So one of the things that I wanted to make sure we were bringing up, we had some conversations. I know that we passed a motion to have a transportation demand working group. And so after some further review, after, Jessica started to talk with some folks that we identified as potential to be on this, what we started to hear a lot of is this kind of feels like duplication, right? We already have the Grand Valley Metro Council leading this group. We have Commissioner Miguel Cipriano on that group as well. And so what I want to sort of put forward to this group is that, we see ourselves as this commission as really a part of that transportation demand management, but then we're overlaying that with other potential working groups that fit into transportation. So more of this specific strategy of how we can meet that, and then overlay it with the larger work that's happening at the Grand Valley Metro Council that a lot of the people we wanted to be a part of the working group through Mobile GR are already a part of. So I wanted to put that forward and get some thoughts, get your opinions on that. We would create other working groups that would fit into that overall conversation and then fit into our conversations here. But that's kind of what we landed on through my conversations with Jessica, Janelle, and myself. Max sometimes in those meetings to propose to all of you as how we might be able to move forward with that. Anything else you would add to that, Jessica? Okay. All right. If we're feeling good about that, I don't think we need a motion or anything. I just wanted to give an update on some of the hurdles we'd been running into. But know that we do have some ideas and thoughts on where we're going to tap into other working group structures. Okay. All right. I'll pass it over to updates, April 2026 updates.
I have some really exciting information. As you all know, we've had some turnover and folks moving on to some fabulous opportunities. And so then it was time to replace those hard to replace folks. So I am excited to announce that we will bring on our new parking and mobility operations manager. Her name is Christy. She will be here on Monday. And I put a little bit about her here, and I'll bring her to the next time we get together, and it lines up with her schedule. So hopefully next meeting, we'll be able to bring Christy in and she can introduce herself. Christy is a Grand Rapidian, and she actually worked for Mobile GR 20 years ago as a student at GVSU, and she was a security officer with us. So we're really excited to welcome Christy home in a leadership role this time, many years later. So that's really exciting. Christy has been working in parking operations all over the Southeast and is coming home and is really, really excited that she gets to continue to work in parking. So we'll bring Christy on. Oh, did you have?
No.
Oh, okay.
no.
Somebody knows Christy. And then we're also welcoming Asif Shah, who will be joining us. He's got over 20 years of various IT experience, and he's joining us as the Mobile GR IT manager, and he will oversee some of our mega SCADA projects. Also, kind of, Devin's excited to have a leader back and help work with us on our technology and modernization of our technology, both on the parking and the mobility side. And we're just really excited to have both of them. So I just put a little bit about them in there. The other thing that is really exciting is the Michigan Mobility Fellows Program. It's a program that's statewide, and a year ago, or last year, they had an inaugural group of fellows who they solicit applicants for this fellowship program, and they place them in host sites. And we were, the City of Grand Rapids and DGRI and some of our other partners were asked to speak with them on a panel last year with the first cohort, and I was so excited about the way the program was and how the thoughtfulness that went into this program. Basically, they look for early career professionals who are interested in working in mobility. And then this is a fellowship post a graduate program or something like that. And so we applied to be a host site to get our own fellow, and we were selected. And it's both a reasonable host site fee for a full-time, sharp individual to come on and work on specific projects. And so we're in the middle of working with the Mobility Fellows program to finalize recruitments, and we'll bring them online, and they will work with Max's strategic initiative team on a variety of projects, but most notably on the mobility blueprint. So this is really exciting news, and it's really fun. So they'll be with us for 15 months, and you'll see them. We'll bring them around and introduce them as well. And that's all from me.
All right. Thanks, Jessica. I'll turn it over to Commissioner Sessa for the Vital Streets representative update.
Yes, so there was the meeting yesterday. As I mentioned, I was out of town, so unfortunately I was not able to attend the meeting, but I did have some updates from fellow commissioner. It sounds like the biggest update will be that there was a lot of discussion around the 2027-2028 budget season, and that the commission will actually be sending a letter of concern to the city commission as they went over latest data on success metrics for what they are doing, and presented data at that meeting that basically the city is falling behind on those metrics, and so this will be a topic of conversation in August. The June meeting will be canceled, so the next time I'll really have an update on this will be in August. But just from hearing this, I do feel this is appropriate, and the city engineer also felt it is appropriate. Just seeing that we're having a lot of projects being shelved currently, and a lot of work that's on hold, and I think that this is very concerning to members of the community, but also to members of the commission. So that is the main item.
Great. Thanks, Commissioner Sessa. And then, Jessica, I think you did your director's updates maybe, so we'll flip it and do the April 2026 updates, which I think anything of note for you, and then any questions from the rest of the commission on what's reported.
Yep, the one, and you're right, I flipped those. So in the April updates from, all of the work that we're doing, one of the things I want to draw your attention to, and maybe the mayor wants to speak to this a little bit more. Recently, the commission had a presentation on the Climate Adaptation Action Plan. Did I get that right? The CAP. And part of, there's quite a few things around mobility in that plan, and of the commission, they set 20 priority actions, and one of the things they were chatting about was DART program, and I had stepped out of the room, so I couldn't answer the question, but that information that they were asking about, like kind of how's it doing, and I can't remember the specific question, but I know that it's in your updates here. So those conversations, I plan on bringing our operator in our lead operator, his name is Creighton with MDO, to come and chat with you all next month, I believe, to give you a full review of how this program's been going, looking at some of the finances and what we're talking about, because in this year's budget, we're wrapping up that initial $300,000 investment into the program. And so you'll see a little bit, there's a little bitty $30,000 that we need to add to 27's budget to finalize, just kind of add to that initial $300,000 to get us through this next fiscal year. And then what we will look for is a full operation of the program, if that, after our conversation, seems to be the right way to go with this program. This program's a pilot, but we're coming to the end of the pilot timeline during fiscal year 27. So I just wanted to call your attention to all of this. In May, we will have a robust discussion about that. And I will really be looking forward to some of the information that you all, some of the advice you all might have to be on how we're going to move forward. Now, I have not forgotten you. You had lots and lots of questions about user experience last time we talked about the DART, and that is also something that we'll address next month or next meeting, which is going to be here pretty soon since we were pushed out a little bit later on this one. So that is the one thing I wanted to draw your attention to.
Great. Any other questions on the updates? Okay, hearing none. We will move into our general public comment. I will now open the floor for general public comment. The board would appreciate having the members of the public attending the meeting today identify themselves before providing comment. However, it is not required to give your name. So do we have any members of the public who would, and yes, come on up. You want me to sit there? Yeah, that would be great. Commissioner Rohr is great company.
So my name is Josiah Geis. I've met some of you before at different events. I recognize some faces. I've worked with the Grand Rapids Public School System, with the state park, and I'm an educator at the Grand Rapids Public Museum currently. So that's my background. I'm born in Grand Rapids, lived in Grand Rapids most of my life, and I am everyday a Dash user, and so that is why I'm here today. So I live on the north side of town. The Leonard stop is the stop that I use regularly. It's how I get to work. It's how I get to church. It's how I get to the grocery store, yada, yada, yada. But I am getting the feeling that that's not necessarily what this meeting is about. That's not the intended purpose of the Dash, is to be something that you use to get groceries. It's meant to be something that you use to not take your car downtown or possibly leave your car somewhere in the city and get to a location you're trying to get to. But I also use it for that purpose. I've not had to drive into the city for games at the Van Andel, plays at the Civic. I was hoping not to have to ever drive my car to get to the extra amphitheater, but it is looking like that might be something that I have to do. Just generally, there is a lot on that side of town that is also losing access, and generally, my dad actually told me it was silly to come here because he was like, what are you going to do? Like, really, is anyone going to listen to you? And I told him, yeah, they'll at least listen to me. Who knows what they'll do with that information? But I thought I'd just come down and let you know that there are people that use that service to do a lot of things. And I know Max has said online considerably a large amount of times that he has put a lot of thought into that stop in particular, the Monroe stop, the library stop. But yeah. Big transit user. It's been a lot of fun listening to you guys talk, and that's really all I wanted to say. I just wanted to come down and let you know that there are people who rely on every single stop. Yep. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Josiah.
You're welcome.
Josiah, would you mind spelling your name for?
Oh, yeah. Josiah, last name Geis, Giese.
Thank you very much.
Any other public comment? All right. All right, we will move into commissioner comments. I saw Mayor LeGrand first, then Commissioner Miguel Cipriano, then Commissioner Puelka, and then Commissioner Wheeler, and then Vice Chair Ray, and then Commissioner Sessa. Let's go for it.
So to shoot the rapids, first of all, Josiah, thank you. One of the things, so there's two things I've been saying about that, well, three really, about the Dash thing. One is some of this is really about cost containment, the shift, as you probably know. I'm sure you've been following this very carefully. Some of it, I am happy about the increase in frequency because I'm a hybrid user of systems, so I sometimes walk, sometimes use transit, and the ability to have things come faster is good. The third thing, though, to give you a little hope is this is very specifically articulated as a pilot, and I've been saying a lot in public recently that, like, we want to have more things that where we try something that's reversible. So we're not building a 20-year arc. This isn't the Silver Line. We're not building $50 million worth of new bus stops that will then have to, keep making sure buses drive by and never be able to change the line because of these, very complicated bus stops. So thanks for the input. And I think that all of us are committed, and the city commission's committed, and I'm committed to seeing how this goes and getting feedback. And so please continue to engage in the conversation, I guess is what I'd say, right? It doesn't have to be the last time you talk about it. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. Second of all, I noticed in our Lime data that bike use seems to be really dropping off. So scooter use seems to be fairly stable, but bike use is not. I want to at least flag that maybe we want to do what we did before, which is incentivize. There's lots I like about bike share specifically. I personally, intuitively, it feels safer to me to have people on bikes. I see so much dangerous behavior on scooters. I have yet to see a heavily inebriated person with their 8-year-old kid on the front of a bike. And people on bikes, I think, have higher percentage of use of helmets, and they have bigger wheels, which means they can avoid potholes better than things with smaller wheels. It's just basic engineering. So I would like to see us consider incentivizing and prompting, maybe stimulating some greater use of bikes in that mix. And then the third thing I'd like to just throw out there is, in the spirit of experimentation, the tech that lets us do flashing crosswalks where you have a battery-operated, solar-powered crosswalk. Those, last I checked, cost about $25,000 a set, which is a whole lot cheaper than the hard architecture, but it also lets us experiment. So we could put them at locations and see how that goes. So I would love to see us, Mobile GR, maybe invest in a stable of, you could almost think of as an equipment rental operation where, when neighbors ask, and because we're moving to a more of a demand-based program, I'd really love to see us level up on a movable feast for traffic calming. We do some of that, but I'd love to have us do exponentially more. Same with traffic shaming devices. So those are my comments. Thanks.
I've got 3 comments. I have a request from my neighbors over at Garfield Park Neighborhood Association. They're putting in a request for data, for any available data for money that's invested in streets and road construction within their boundary. Second thing I want to bring up is the EV car share app. I've had a few users, myself as well, come up with a lot of issues. Seems to bounce back between the way they connect to the app, allowing for not connecting. You're not able to lock or unlock. I've gone to one that's been completely unlocked. So I'd like for there to be a review there. And lastly, Dash. I hear our resident Josiah's frustrations. Yeah, I don't think it's your request is falling on enough ears here that I think the staff will try to do as much as possible. But I think I was on that team that put it to Leonard Street, and then I initially didn't want to put it onto Leonard Street because as a our supervisor told me before, it's hard to give the residents something and then to take it away, even though it was stretched. And so this is the consequences that happens when it really wasn't intended for that purpose. And so you still have a loss that you feel. But I don't want to leave you empty-handed. And so an alternative is talk to the local Corridor Improvement Authority, West Side Corridor Improvement Authority. There's ways that there's funds that they have. That is one way that the Dash is funded, is through the DDA and other ways. So that's putting the onus on them to be very imaginative. We get requests for every neighborhood association or neighborhood in Corridor Improvement Authority. They're like, we want a Dash downtown. This is an equity issue. We don't have a Dash down. That's not what the Dash is intended for. We have the Rapid. We should be talking to the Rapid and to find more innovative ways on making sure that you're able to not have to use your car because it's one car less on the road. And so the West Side Corridor Improvement Authority, that information is available online. Thank you.
I'll keep it going. Whoever, yeah, go ahead.
Just a note of self-disclosure for the Mobility Blueprint team interviews. Our firm Flywheel is a participant in one of those proposals, so you'll be seeing our name on there. Oh, two proposals, sorry.
I'm in the same boat as Adam. I'm employed by a company, Progressive Companies, that's also an applicant of the Mobility Blueprint RFP. I'm not directly on that team. That's not the work I do as an engineer, but I also need to disclose that to be transparent.
Yeah, so I would like to first thank Josiah for being here and talking about the dash. At the meeting, I don't remember if it was last month or in February anymore because my time is, sense of time is meaningless. But I just want to say that, at that meeting, there were a few of us that were, including myself, that were, pretty opposed to this change for the reasons that you mentioned, because, we now are taking away a service that people use. And I don't want to be in a position as a city that we're cutting access to things like public transit. I think that if anything, we should always be thinking about expanding access to public transit. So, as a citizen, as a commissioner, as a public transit user, I'm very disappointed in this decision, even if it is a pilot. I think that one of the things, we don't move roads around, we don't move our parking lots, we don't move, any of these things. And so it would be like saying, oh, we're gonna completely block off access to this parking lot. Oh, but it's a pilot, don't worry. But that still means that, in the short term, there are people who rely on that service that it will not be available for them. And I think that is not the direction that I want to see the city going in. So I have some other comments about, this dash change that I've been reflecting on since that meeting and wanted to share. And one of them is, not to put any of my fellow commissioners on blast, but a comment that was made during this discussion is that ridership is an output and not an outcome. And I think that is just completely and utterly backwards way to be thinking about public transit. Public transit exists to move people safely, effectively, affordably, conveniently around the city that they live in. Ridership should be the North Star when we're thinking about public transit, not what business owners want who don't use the service. It should be the people who use public transit. Their voices should be the ones that are elevated the highest when we're talking about these sorts of decisions. And that is not what I have seen when we are making this decision about the dash. I think a lot of good comments have been brought up, that, with the current route, we're cutting a lot of stops to downtown destinations. So, if we're saying that this is a service, for people to get around downtown, not just a parking shuttle, the stops that are being cut kind of undermine that statement. We don't have access to the library anymore. The dash won't even stop at Central Station. So if we're saying that, oh, well, you can take the rapid into the city and then get on the dash and use that to move around. Well, if the dash doesn't stop at Central Station, I don't see how that is really going to happen. And to me, sort of underlines this idea that these decisions are being made by people who do not use the service. Because if you used it, if you had a user, you would have seen that. Downtown Market, that's another, another big destination that isn't on the route. And so it's just, it is really disappointing for me. Living in this city, seeing progress being made and feeling like that progress is now being reversed. I do appreciate, the fiscal constraints and all of that. And one of the things that has been said, online and also in our meetings is that, one of the reasons that we're having this discussion is because we want to be able to see how as a city, how as Mobile GR, we can support mobility as a whole in the city. And so what I would like to see now moving forward is a real discussion on that. How, if we're saving money on a new dash route, hopefully increasing the frequency as well, what are we now going to do? What new opportunities are we opening up by doing that? And I worry that, we'll do this and then everything will just go back to status quo and it will be the same. Another thing is, last year in July, I believe, we had a conversation about a survey that we were conducting among Dash users to learn more about their experience. I don't believe that we've ever seen the results of that survey in this commission. So, if we're going to be talking about how we're changing the Dash, I think, again, we need to have access to the opinions of the people who use the service. Thank you.
Three things. Josiah, thank you. Thank you for coming down. It's really important that we do have members of the public speaking about how they use the Dash. I echo Commissioner Sessa's disappointment that this is the decision that was made. Obviously, there are fiscal constraints and all sorts of stuff. From my perspective as a commissioner, I feel it could have perhaps been better communicated, perhaps sooner. I don't know if that's a mobile GR thing or a rapid thing. Number two is the notion of a pilot program. I very much appreciate, not for public transit. Public transit, in my mind, should be something that's built off of and that can be counted on by folks that use it. Great example of roads, and that's not something that really happens. Obviously, we can move roads around to increase capacity or whatever, but it certainly feels as if the public transit rider within Grand Rapids and from a mobile GR perspective is lesser of a priority than everyone else. So, not a great feeling. Third, on the Dash, last thing for the Dash, I hope that we can synthesize a mission statement for the Dash in the future. I believe it's listed on like 2 or 3 different websites, Rapid, maybe GVMC, and Mobile GR. Each one says the Dash does a different thing, and that's a problem. We are the owners of it. We need a concrete mission statement that we as commissioners can point to you as staff, say, how does this align to the mission statement? That would be a fantastic working group I would love to see of what is the future of the Dash? Is there a future in the Dash, or what are we doing with instead of the Dash? So I hope to see that moving forward. And then third, kind of a change here, but there's a large-ish development happening at the Display Pack building on Monroe, right north of Leonard, about, I think, 500-ish units. I've been aware that the developer there is very into providing transit, or not providing transit, but hoping that transit is located with that very large development. I'm a big proponent of that. Also, the eastern boundary of that is Taylor, which is the east-west boundary of the city. It's a very, very wide right-of-way and would be a great spot for a protected bike lane because nobody parks there currently. So we might as well use it while we can, right? So just wanted to bring that, to your attention if it's not already there. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. All right, I'll move to wrap us up. I do want to give one big shout out to just the presentation. I think that I look at this as moving us into being proactive, hopefully moving us in the right direction about shared mobility, about different types of mobility, and I think it's really a great testament of the work that's getting put into how we can be intentional about mobility specific to our updated event spaces. In terms of, big shout out to all of the PR that's been going out about that. I'm glad we can hear it here directly from the source too. I think the other thing is regarding the Dash. We do still have the the working group set up for that. I agree. I think that having some level of a mission and intent of what that looks like moving forward is important. I think understanding outcomes, that's going to be important in what we want to look for. We can't guarantee it's going to get to the north, but Josiah, you can tell your daddy's wrong. And so with that, I want to thank everyone for your continued input, your continued advocacy in this space, and I am going to have us close. Thank you all.